Welcome to Reels on the Rocks, the show where your hosts Whiskey and Sweet Tea discuss film from the unpretentious perspective. In this episode, we celebrate the month of love with Whiskey and Sweet Tea's Lonely Hearts Club, in which we discuss the 2003 romantic comedy Down with Love. Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and as always, please be advised that spoilers are ahead. Hello, listeners. Welcome to Whiskey and Sweet Tea's first annual Lonely Hearts Club. And we don't mean that in a depressing way. We're just here to spread love to everybody who's lonely out there.
Welcome back, everybody. I'm very happy we were able to start a lot earlier than we normally do when starting a new year of the show. So, first off, I think we've talked about this behind the scenes, but I don't know if any of you have picked up on this, but Stay Thirsty is kind of taken.
Yeah, and don't worry,
I'm not the most interesting man in the world.
And I promise you, we're not being sued. This is Whiskey's own prerogative thinking forward.
Right, so the quest for this year ongoing is we need to find a new little catchphrase sign-off for the show. So we'll be trying stuff out. You know, if anyone listens and has an opinion or a suggestion, feel free to let us know. But we're going to be trying different stuff out, and we'll figure something out. But anyway, for the Lonely Hearts Club month, which, spoiler alert, it's going to be one episode this month because we still started a little late.
We still started a little later, but we're very excited about this. For those of you who don't know, this is Sweet Tea, my favorite month of the year. You know, Whiskey's all about October, horror, Halloween, people getting stabbed with drills through their heads. I'm all about spreading the love. I'm like SpongeBob from this Valentine's episode. I leave my house on Valentine's Day and just throw hearts at people because I just want to spread love and kindness.
It's because T has so many boyfriends, he can't keep up. He's just got to spread the love around.
Sure, let's go with that.
All right, so before all of you probably know what movie we're reviewing if you can read, unlike me. But let's talk about what cocktails we are having. So what are you having this time, T?
Well, keeping with the theme and time period of this movie, I am having the classic 60s cocktail, the Manhattan. I have it in my nice little glass with the vermouth, the bitters, everything in there. I even bought those little skewer things so I could put cherries on them and it sits across the glass. And I tried to dye it pink, which was a spectacular failure on my part, so it just looks black. But that's what I'm drinking.
Maybe I'm thinking of something else. Isn't vermouth red already?
Well, when you mix it together, it kind of looks like Coca-Cola a little bit. It looks kind of brown.
Yeah, that makes sense. Fun fact, that's actually my dad's go-to cocktail whenever he's out. He doesn't like the cherries, though, so he lets me eat them. My cocktail is a bit of a throwback. So, any longtime listeners of the show may remember one of our first episodes. It might have even been our first episode, but I did kind of a segment on movie theater snacks that are strange. And I mentioned one particular item from Spain that was so bonkers that the fact that it was popular kind of blew my mind. And I said in the episode, someday, maybe on the show, I would try it again. And that has been in the back of my mind since we've been doing this show. So, for any of you who don't know, apparently in Spain, it is very popular to mix red wine and Coca-Cola.
That actually sounds delicious. I hope I said that back in the day, but that actually sounds delicious.
I think it sounds disgusting, but ironic. I mean, I'm curious. So we're getting a live reaction of my, how I feel about this. But so far it smells good. I'll say that. I was not expecting it to smell good. So maybe it'll taste good too. But so to balance out the sugary sweetness of the Coke, the wine I picked not too expensive because I didn't want to waste any good wine, but like not mid range. Dark Horse Cabernet Sauvignon. It's got a deep oaky flavor that I feel like will probably balance out the Coca-Cola. In the source that I found about the wine Coke mixing, they never really specified what kind of red wine, so I'm going off the cuff here. So we will find out if the Spanish are crazy or if they're onto something, and that maybe who knows, maybe this will be like, if anyone listening has a TikTok and I don't hate this, maybe it can be a new TikTok trend.
A new TikTok trend. Try this.
Well, seriously, no. Do you remember the one I feel like it was a year ago? There was one where it's like put mustard on a watermelon.
Yes,
and it was apparently delicious. Like people were like, whoa, why does this taste good? I never tried it, but so who knows? Maybe wine and Coca-Cola, red wine specifically, and Coca-Cola will be like the new big what the hell? Why does this work so well kind of thing?
As a Southerner, I refuse to desecrate watermelon that way.
So anyway, the other reason I picked this is because I've never seen this movie before. You guys know me by now. If you're just tuning in, as T said, I'm not particularly into rom-coms. I like them when they are done well. I do have favorites. For instance, The Holiday with Jack Black is very good. Love Actually, which both of them are like Christmas movies with British people, so I don't know. And there's other ones too. Like I like them, but it's not my favorite genre. So when I was told that we were going to watch this, I checked out the trailer and it looked horrible. So,
which I agree. I agree with that.
And that's the thing. Like, never always. Trailers can be misleading. Sometimes they're terrible. Especially this came out in 2003, so the art of the trailer hadn't really been perfected. So I didn't know what to make of the movie. Just as I do not know what to make of this cocktail I'm about to drink. So I thought...
You put so much thought into this.
Again, I've been wanting to do the red wine and Coke thing, but I didn't want it to come out of nowhere. So as soon as I was like thinking about this movie and that it's like, who knows, maybe I'll hate it, maybe I'll love it. I'm like, ooh, that's just like the wine and Coke thing. So perfect cocktail to kick off season 3.
Okay. So I'm in suspense. Taste
All right.
it. Get ready?
Give me a drum roll, T. Oh my god.
So
it doesn't suck, guys. It's actually... What the hell?
That was the greatest reaction ever. It doesn't suck, guys.
Seriously, if anyone has a TikTok, man, I mean, we don't have one, but go viral on our behalf, because this is shockingly good. I'm sure in Spain, no one's going to be, no one's mind is going to be blown, but it's wild. Yeah, red wine and Coke. It doesn't suck.
And notes from the official Whiskey and Sweet Tea test kitchen, he used Dark Horse Cabernet Sauvignon, and he did it with, I'm assuming, regular Coca-Cola?
Yeah, just regular,
So if you
it was funny. I was just looking for a single bottle again because I didn't want to waste anything if this didn't turn out to be good. And hilariously, I had to go searching around the grocery store because all they had was cherry Coke, vanilla Coke, Coke Zero, and I'm like, no. The article said Coke. Regular Coke. I want regular Coke. I found it though. But yeah, geez, really good omen for this season.
Okay, good.
So anyway. Down with love. Let's
get
into the movie now.
Yeah, down with love.
Now that the preamble is out of the way. So,
down with love.
Why did you pick this movie, T?
So, this is one of these movies that I have always loved. I saw this back when I was in 3rd grade. My mom was a huge Ewan McGregor fan. She still is, but now she's kind of shifted more towards Nathan Fillion. But she was a huge Ewan McGregor fan. And so she went and saw this. So because she bought the movie, we saw it. And one of the things I've always loved about this movie is just the style and the music in it and the set decoration. Just a lot of work went into this movie. And I feel like it's a movie that's not appreciated because a lot of people didn't see this movie. And I think one of the problems is a lot of people didn't understand this movie when it came out. Because as we saw with the trailer, and I hope you agree with this, the trailer makes it look like one kind of movie and then you see it and that's not what it is.
I completely agree. But going into, because that was going to be one of my first questions, is how the movie did. So let's. What about all the analytics? How much did it make? Who directed it? All that stuff.
So you actually caught me unprepared. Give me a couple
What?
seconds here. Okay, so I know it does not have a fabulous rating. So it did 40 million at the international box office. It did worse than expected.
How much was the budget?
The budget of this movie was. Are they not going to tell us? Oh, it did make back its budget. 35 million was its budget.
Ooh, not by much though.
Not by much though.
A bomb.
But I do think they thought this was going to be better. This came out. It wasn't like it came out like in February or January, which is kind of like the dumping months for not good movies. This came out in May.
Although for a rom-com, February is not a bad idea. Right. Usually that's like, time to dump some romantic movies.
Right. But so I think they really expected this movie to do a lot better than it did. For example, at Bloomingdale's in New York, they actually had launched a Down with Love clothing line to coincide with this movie. It was kind of based on the styles in the movie.
That was going to be my question. Is it like 60? Was it 60s inspired?
So I don't remember seeing what it looked like. My dad went to New York around that time to for work, and my mom asked him go to Bloomingdale's, and so she took some pictures. I couldn't find the pictures, but I do know that they did at least have some of the costumes on display there. And from what my mom said, yes, it wasn't like the clothes in the movie, but they were kind of 60s inspired clothing lines. They even had, I think, a makeup collaboration, which you can still occasionally find people reselling that makeup kit on eBay. And that was all sold again exclusively through Bloomingdale's. And then this is actually interesting. Did you watch the post-credit scene or the credit scene?
Yes. Yeah. I'm trying to remember what it was.
It was a musical number.
Yes. Okay. Yes, I did see that.
So this actually to me tells me they expect this movie to do better. So that scene was actually not originally in it. After filming had wrapped and everything, actually Ewan was already on to his next project, which was Big Fish with Tim Burton. So he was filming in Alabama. They actually he and Renee Zellweger, the last movies they'd both done were both musicals, and they were both huge, with Ewan doing Moulin Rouge and Renee Zellweger last doing Chicago. So they kept saying, you can't have us both in the same movie and not have a musical thing. So after filming had wrapped, they actually found additional funding. They flew Ewan out to Atlanta, Renee Zellweger to Atlanta, and they filmed this. They wrote the music and filmed this thing post the filming. So to me, that really says they expected this movie to do a lot better. They were going to put all this much effort into it.
Yeah, I would say so. It's kind of amazing it didn't do, I was going to say that the marketing was terrible if the trailer was it, but it sounds like they did quite a big push for marketing, so I am kind of curious why it didn't do so well. I don't know, was there, because if it was just going off of the trailer, if it's someone like me looking and I'm just like, wow, this looks like hot garbage, you would think usually there's the morning talk shows, the late night talk shows, TV ads. Obviously, they did a cross promotion with Bloomingdale's and stuff, so I'm kind of surprised. It sounds like they put a lot of effort into marketing it. So do you have any theories as to why it probably bombed? Is it just you think people didn't, they didn't get it from the marketing that they did? Or
so I think
because also this is speaking of Renee Zellweger, I wanted to bring her up just because I think she's underrated. Mm-hmm. She gets a lot of crap because she's in a lot of rom-coms, but she's a really good actress to the point where I can't remember if she's British or American because she does both accents so well.
Yeah.
And speaking of rom-coms I actually like the what are the something Jones?
Bridget Jones's Diary.
Bridget Jones. Yeah, the Bridget Jones Diary movies. I've seen the first two.
Mm-hmm.
There was a new one that came out, and I don't know.
Bridget Jones's Baby.
Yeah, I don't know. That one, I saw the trailer and it looked kind of awful, and it was also 10 years or more since the last one came out, so and that too, it sounded like people kind of had mixed opinions about it. But anyway, I think she's super underrated, so it was nice seeing her in this.
I don't think I've disliked her in anything I've seen her in. She actually is in, it might be on the bill this year, I'm not sure. She actually did another, it was a historical romance movie. I guess she was also again paired with Ewan McGregor. That, again, it's a movie that nobody saw. But I've always thought it was really good, and she's amazing in it. And I think she, like you said, she's not taken seriously because she's done a lot of rom-coms and people kind of just assume that's all she can do.
Well, the funny thing is, I think she's actually won an Oscar. I know she's been nominated. No, wait, what am I talking about? Yeah, she just won an Oscar a few years ago for, it was that movie about...
Judy Garland, right?
Judy Garland.
Which, ironically, Judy Garland was in this movie.
I'm gonna wait. So wait. How did I miss that? Where's Judy Garland in the movie?
Judy Garland is the one who does the performance of Down with Love on the Ed Sullivan Show. That's actually a performance she did. That's actual footage of her. So,
which I could tell that was a real song that came out, in the 60s or whatever. But so there you go. She won an Oscar very recently for which, by the way, you should see that movie. It was awesome. Mm-hmm. Very depressing, but again, Renee Zellweger killing it. Before we
go too much farther, I need to go over the our usual, I guess, beat list. So, Down with Love, 2003, directed by Peyton Reed, who, if you remember, also directed Yes Man.
Yes Man.
Music was by Mark Shaman. Costumes by Daniel Orlandi. It was written by Ave Alert and Dennis Drake. Art direction was by Martin Wist. And set decoration by Don Deers. Starring Renee Zellweger as the fabulous Barbara Novak. Ewan McGregor as the scuzzy Catcher Block. Sarah Paulson as Vicky Hillard. And David Hyde Pierce as Peter McManus. So we kind of, I wouldn't call it an all-star cast, but it's a cast that you've definitely seen in a lot of stuff and has done a lot of stuff. I've always said this is like one of the few roles I can stand Sarah Paulson in. Something about her just irritates me, and I have no idea what it is.
I like her, but I can't remember what I've liked her in before. I liked her in this, and that's the thing too. Like, she has one of those faces where I'm like, I've seen her in something.
Well, she was in American Horror Story for like ever.
Oh, there we go. Well, she did good in that. I actually do not like that show very much, but the one thing I think is actually excellent in it is the acting. Mm-hmm. Like, oh goodness, why am I? Jessica Lange. She's always been amazing, but I'd never really seen her in anything until American Horror Story, and I was like, she's carrying the show. And I know they know that because she's in every season, even though it's like a different thing. And they're like, it's like, we need Jessica Lange back. And I'm like, so I do not like the show, but I do think that the performances are always good, even if I think the writing is kind of dog shit.
Yeah.
But which I'm sure is an unpopular opinion, but I don't care. Honestly, it was an all-star cast for the time this came out.
Yeah.
Especially like with the two leads, like Renee Zellweger. Bridget Jones was still coming out. Mm-hmm. Ewan McGregor was kind of like, this was right after Moulin Rouge. Obviously, like Trainspotting and stuff. He'd just done Star Wars as well. So like now, definitely like a big star cast, but maybe some of these people are not as relevant as they used to be. Mm-hmm. Ewan and Renee are definitely still kicking, but some of the supporting cast, I don't think most people would know who any of them are.
Yeah.
Well, the one, David Hyde Pierce, I know from like Frasier.
Yes, that's where I know him from too.
And that was still going on, I believe, when this movie came out.
I think it ended already. I think it ended.
Well, poop. Well, people were still missing it then.
He still had enough of a name around at the time to land the role.
Yeah, so I think I'll talk about my initial reaction to the movie when it came out, because I think, and I'll let you go into the story, but one thing that was not made apparent in the trailer was that this is it's a period piece that copies the style of kind of the 1960s sex comedy.
Yes.
So this would be in the same vein as like Breakfast at Tiffany's or something like that. And I did not get that at all. I understood in the trailer that it was set in the 60s, but when this movie started and it had that big CinemaScope logo, I was like, is this the wrong movie?
Is this the wrong
as it went on, like everything, like you guys know me, I like cinematography. I like, when there's like a stylistic choice made, whether it's good or bad. I always kind of like it when the movie tries to set itself apart. Mm-hmm. And that's, to me, the biggest strength in this movie is it is written like a 1960s sex comedy. It looks like one. The acting is on par with it. And it's also like, the comedy is a lot of like innuendo and witty dialogue.
Yes.
It literally, there's a couple of jokes that would not fly in the 60s. Like, for instance, the phone sex joke thing.
Yes.
Where they're all, that would not exist if the movie had come out in the 60s. But other than that, the thing I thought was really kind of cool about it is it's almost like someone just dusted off an old script from the 60s and made it in 2003.
Yeah. This is a movie that I've always felt was extremely just underappreciated. And for one of the main things is the amount of effort that was put in the way it was written and the way it was shot and the way it was stylized. It gets no love for that, and I have no idea why. But this is a movie that people see later and they're like, oh, I kind of like this. But like I think you'd asked earlier, why do you think this didn't do so well? And my answer is because I think, one, it wasn't marketed right, and then two, the people who did see the marketing and like that went to the movie and that's not what they got.
Yeah, especially like, again, with the type of comedy that it's trying to emulate, it's very witty. Like, that's kind of the sort of humor it's going for, and it's more of a comedy than a romance to
right
me.
Yeah, I agree.
Which I do not think this movie is perfect. We'll get into my criticisms near the end. But I do think that its strength is that it is very, if you like playing with words and kind of innuendo, that sort of stuff, it'll tickle you. But it's, if you're going for especially the type of like rom-coms that were coming out at the time, like one movie that comes to mind that is a good movie. This is another rom-com I do not hate, but like Hitch with Will Smith was kind of big in the mid-2000s. Very different vibe from this movie.
Yeah.
Like, again, that's kind of, I feel like my theory as to why this didn't do well is kind of your second point, that people went to see it and didn't like what they saw, because this is, like, I don't want to sound pretentious or like say like if you don't like the type of humor in this movie, you're stupid or something, but I feel like the type of humor is much more like mature. And again, like a lot of the types of rom-coms that were coming out in the mid-2000s were very like goofy.
They were goofy, and they were kind of adolescent too.
Yeah, it's not the best word to describe it, but like there were two flavors, because I mentioned The Holiday is like a romance movie that I like, and that came out in like 2005, 2006, I think, maybe a little bit later. But the two flavors of romantic movies in the 2000s were like goofy, zany, sort of like, like Hitch or something like that, or just like straight sappy, sentimental romance stuff. Because even though I guess The Holiday would be considered a rom-com, I would say it's a little bit more of like a cute movie, like sentimental. I don't think it's particularly funny. It's got some funny moments in it, but a lot of it is just about the relationships in the movie.
Yeah, it's very kind of,
and this doesn't really nostalgic. Fit into either of those categories.
Yeah.
So like I feel like I kind of agree with you. I feel like possibly with word of mouth, people were like, I didn't get it.
Yeah.
Like, what even was that though? Like, why did it look so old?
My mom went to go see this. Well, actually, my mom saw this on her birthday. Her friend at the time had taken her to see it, and my mom loved it, and her friend was like, I don't get this. So I do know that audience did exist. They didn't understand basically really what it was and what it was supposed to be, and they didn't understand this is kind of like done in the style of these, like you said, these 60s sex comedies. And it's weird. It's kind of like this is like a fun movie for like film snobs, because they're very familiar with the type of movie that it's emulating and kind of satirizing a little bit.
It's definitely a very niche. If this came out today, I think more people would appreciate it. Again, like the 2000s was a dark time. Like, this was a time when parody movies like Epic Movie were dominating the box office. So again, not to talk down to any of the movie going public in the time, but it was just definitely a different kind of vibe with the movie going public. And yeah, it's an interesting thing because, like, again, with me, style points go a long way. I really enjoyed that this was kind of a callback to old styles of, you know, comedy. Like, this is the sort of thing that would be considered a rom-com in the 60s.
Right. This
and
is
the detail, like the attention to detail with, like, I tend to like kind of flashy, show-offy cinematography, but this was all like very similar to what you would see from a movie of that time period.
Right.
So there's nothing particularly flashy. The only really kind of show-offy stuff they do is with when people are on the phone, there's like kind of I forget what you call it, like almost like panels.
Oh, a split screen.
Split screen, thank you. And they get very creative with that. As I said, there's kind of a joke later in the movie where the two leads are on the phone and they're like exercising or stretching, and the split screen is set up so it looks like they're having sex while on the phone.
Yeah.
Very suggestive. Actually kind of reminds me of something that would have been in Austin Powers, which was popular at the time. Which is also funny. I don't think, maybe I'm just not remembering the trailer, but I feel like if they had put a clip from that scene in the trailer, maybe it would have done better in the marketing. But yeah, like, so this is the sort of thing, it might not be my type of movie, but having that kind of creative choice certainly goes a long way. We have gone a long time, and you haven't even explained what the movie is about, T.
Well, you just started talking. So wait, first off, I'm very glad to hear that you enjoyed the movie.
Sort of. Like I said, it's funny. It's funny that my reaction to this weird mixed drink I'm drinking is it doesn't suck. It's kind of my feelings. Again, like, it has nothing to do with the movie. Like, as far as how it was made and everything, I think it was very admirable, and I think it's a shame it didn't do better.
Right.
My beef is more with the content, which we'll get into once we discuss the story.
Okay, so the story. This is a story. It's a story about love. No, I'm just kidding. Moulin Rouge throwback for all y'all who know that. But essentially, this movie is about Barbara Novak. She has sold a book to this publishing company. She comes down to New York to finish the publishing process, get it promoted. And one of the main things is her publisher gets her cover story with this journalist, Catcher Black, who's played by Ewan McGregor. He's kind of like, as they keep saying, ladies man, man's man, man about town. He is kind of just, you know, your typical kind of very handsome, full of himself, gross male type. Who, as they describe later, he goes through changes women as often as they change their shirts. So he kind of pushes back. He refuses to do the cover story. The book ends up becoming wildly successful, and it turns out that what Barbara had ended up writing about, which was about women being able to get ahead in the world by not focusing on love, kind of screws up his dating life. So he tries to get back at her by exposing her, and he dons this fake disguise as Major Zip Martin, goes out with her and tries to get her to sleep with him or to fall in love with him, so that he can prove that she's just all women are the same. They all want love and they all want marriage. He ends up falling for her, and then when it comes out who she is, it actually comes out that she was his secretary previously. She was in love with him, but she knew that she would never fit into his life enough to get him to fall in love with her. So she went up to Maine. She wrote an international bestseller, which we'll talk about that monologue later because I love that monologue. And this was all part of her plan to get him to fall for her. And then she goes off and realizes that she's now essentially a god to these women who look to her for guidance on what to do, on how to be independent in their lives. Starts her own organization, a magazine called Now, which is a callback to the National Organization of Women, which was founded around the same time. And he applies for a job there. Now that she has the upper hand, she can fall in love with him, and they go off together. So that's basically what that's about.
Well, why don't you spoil the entire movie?
You told me to say what the story was. I'm telling you what this, it's this Manhattan. I think it's gone to my head.
I'm being facetious. No, but and if anyone is listening to the show for the first time, don't, if you want to be surprised by the movie, good time to learn that we do spoil the movies on this show. But yeah, so the thing I thought was really clever, besides like the stylistic stuff, is that it kind of took the setting and ran with it. As far as like the 60s, it was the birth of like first wave feminism, the sexual revolution. And this isn't the only movie that does this, but it's always funny to me when a movie will take a fictional character and make them sort of the, starting point of some sort of like radical change in the world. You see this a lot in like Forrest Gump. And what really led to the sexual revolution was the advent of the birth control pill.
Yeah.
Because now women could have casual sex the way men did, and nothing bad would happen, bad things could still happen, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, we know what you mean.
Babies wouldn't happen. And it kind of, really shifted the social hierarchy of the time. Men were very confused by it. And so I thought it was funny that this film took the idea of her writing a book as like, oh, she came up with this whole idea, though it was actually like modern medicine. I thought that was funny.
They even have a line. They have a line in the movie where Vicky says, "You're bigger than the pill."
Yeah, like it's self-aware. It's not trying to like, and again, it's like Forrest Gump, where it's like, oh, he wipes his face off on a t-shirt and he creates the smiley face icon. Like, it's the same sort of goofy idea as that. And I also liked how her steps were hilariously simple, and there was the whole thing about eating chocolate to like, But yeah, like I liked that. I liked that it had a very big like feminist kind of punch to it. My beef with it is I personally, and maybe this will get into one of our famous arguments, but like I felt kind of like the ending sort of undercut anything the movie was trying to say, because the whole like crux of her book and everything is that women are not governed by their emotions. And then at the end, we find out not only is she governed by her emotions, but it led her to create this fictional person who wrote this book just so that she could prove to the guy she adored that she was worthy of his love. And it, to me, felt kind of almost like, I don't want to like say the movie is sexist, because I don't think it means to be, but again, it's kind of like, oh, women aren't obsessed with love and emotion, but I am. And also there was kind of a weird thing where like her best friend was like, I don't want to be a down with love girl anymore. I just want to be married. And it was just, I don't know, it felt weird. I give the movie some credit for not having her quit her writing career, and she does found a company and stuff, but by the end of the film, the whole point is like she's still desperately trying to get this guy who, in my opinion, never like, I don't think every movie needs to follow a formula, but there are, when it does follow a formula, it makes it more satisfying. And there was no growth by any character in this movie, especially Ewan McGregor's character. I would say he is exactly the same by the end as he is at the beginning. And it kind of makes you not, at least me, it makes me not want them to get together, because he's still a womanizing prick by the end. The only reason he says, like, oh, I love you, is because she bested him. And that's not love, that's almost like jealousy. So,
well, I mean, did we not learn anything from Phantom Thread? Love is all about besting the other person and making them be dependent on you.
Yeah, so you know me. I'm Mr. Fun Ruiner. But I don't know. It was something that kind of soured me on the movie by the end because I thought it was actually pretty great. But as it kept going, it's just like, oh, I want to be a down with love girl, but I love men so much and I just want a husband. And it's like, you're kind of undercutting your own message here. Like the whole point of like the feminist movement at the time and stuff was that women are not some, hysterical, emotion-driven creatures, and they are just as capable of having like no strings attached relationships as men. And then here we go with kind of saying the opposite by the end of this movie, that yes, women are governed by their emotions, but we should, I don't know, like,
well,
but they're also boss ladies, but you could totally manipulate them into falling in love with you if you do the right thing. It was just, I don't know, it came off weird, to the point where you said the writers' names, I could have sworn it was a man and a woman.
Yes,
which shut me up a little bit.
And Dennis Drake.
Okay. Because the first thing I did when I stopped the movie was I was like, was this written by a man? Because it would really be funny if, again, like the ending to me seemed borderline sexist, and it's like, oh, it's a man wrote this. So I don't know. Again, I don't want to be the movie police or the rom-com police. It felt odd, and I'm wondering what you think of that, because I don't know if it came across that way to you, or...
So the way I look at it, the way I've always viewed it is she wasn't telling women that they should not be governed by their emotions. What she was saying, at least her character of Barbara Novak, because she's Nancy Brown really, but her character of Barbara Novak was saying is that what we are taught essentially from birth, that, sex is an expression of love, and that we should do everything, out of love for our male counterparts. She's trying to say is women should be able to, in addition to being able to do that, is to also experience life, or at least, their single years, the way men do. And men, again, this is for the time period, men were able to kind of, lead their own lives or make their own enterprises. They could sleep around. They wouldn't have to worry about being attached to everything, which is not how society was wiring women to be. And so that's kind of what she was trying to do, is say, by essentially removing love from this equation, you're able to kind of basically she's saying focus on yourself, is essentially what she was trying to do.
No, and I feel that. Again, like the frustrating thing about the ending is technically she wasn't saying anything, because the only reason she wrote a book was to get his attention. So she was, at least by her own admission at the end of the movie, she was like perfectly concocting the perfect bestseller that women would eat up so that it would sell a lot. Do you see why I say this is frustrating?
Well,
because like... essentially what her book is saying is what the modern idea is that, women are just as capable of, existing outside of, like, they can have sex without being, like, emotionally attached to someone. But again, like, when you pull the rug out from under the audience and you're just like, this was all a plot so that I could get you to marry me, it kind of makes everything she did up until that point feel fake or forced, or that she didn't mean anything she was saying. And that's where it gets very muddy. Well, and the same thing, like I don't think the whole conceit with men at the time, and even in the movie, there's that scene at the beginning of the movie where it's like, oh, love and sex, and that, old crotchety dude's like, aren't they the same thing?
Yeah.
Oh, to women, I mean, and that's kind of the thought process of like misogynists is, women are they can't distinguish the two. Like, sex is love. If you have sex with someone, you are in love with them. And I guess you could say, like, that she never did have sex with Catcher, like, until... Technically, she never does in the whole movie. I guess she does at the end. Whatever. Like, you could say, like, there's no connection with her, like, having sex with him and falling in love, but... again, it's weird to me that they made her character like obsessive, and it honestly reminds me, last year we reviewed Death Becomes Her.
Yeah.
And in a way, she kind of reminds me of that character, because it's like, there's something a little unhinged about going through all of this just to like win a man over. And that's the point, because it's a comedy, but it's still kind of, again, if you're trying to have like a feminist backing for this plot, it's confusing and it makes the ending frustrating, because you wonder if she meant anything she said.
Well, at the end she does, because you get the point, but then we have that flight attendant comes like, she's like, oh my god, thank you so much, because of you I'm training for my pilot's license, I determine who I'm with and on my terms, and then she says, you know what, I can't be with you because I have become, what's in her book, level 3. She is down with love now because she's become so important to these people that she can't let them down, which I thought was kind of cool.
And I would agree with you if it was not for the final twist at the very end of the movie, where it turns out her creating her own company was the final gotcha. Like her plan was also to have him apply for a job at her place and all that. Do you see? That's what I mean. It's like when she decides, like, I love you, but I've become more important now and I need to create this company and all these women look up to me. Like, again, the movie had me back. I was like, okay. So and again, like, part of what frustrates me is none of the characters have like that change, that arc.
Well, see,
in the whole movie, and it seemed like she was having one. It's like, oh, this is more important than my relationship goals. Like I am now an icon. I am someone that women look up to. And then in the last 5 minutes of the movie, she pops into the elevator and it's like, haha, I got you. This was all part of my plan anyway. And it's like,
well,
what is going on?
Well, I mean, if you the way that, okay, so the way I interpret that ending is, yes, she does get the man, she does fall in love at the end, but as that flight attendant said previously, it's on her terms, not on his. He came to her, he left his, I guess he technically, we didn't see him quit, but the idea is that he would have quit his job to come to her. It's all done on her terms instead of being on his terms. And to me, that's kind of like what really sort of changes up the formula a little bit, even from these 60s, like rom-com sex comedy things, is in this movie, everything happens on her terms. Nothing happens on his terms. And so it may not be perfect in its representation, but that's the way I look at it, is everything that happened was because she plotted it out and this is how she wanted it to happen. And I mean, I kind of think the final, she's the woman she wants to be. I kind of think that's what the final thing about, someone between a blonde and a brunette, and she's a redhead now. It's all on her terms. It's all the way she wants it to happen. And so
that makes sense. And to be honest, I was kind of being the person pulling at the joke. It's like, oh, but the dog can't talk. Dogs can't talk. What do you mean? Would the dog say to the bartender? No, but so that was something I found frustrating. You do have a point though. Like she does always have the upper hand, and that's good. The other thing and I guess we're covering 2 comedies next month, so maybe we'll be diving into this more, because it might just be kind of a thing with the genre that there's not so much of a character arc in comedies. Mm-hmm. But that was another thing I found kind of frustrating, is by the end of the movie, whether she was, master manipulator or not, I did not really feel like Catcher really deserved to be in a relationship. Like, for the whole movie, he's oh, I'm undercover, and he's still, and the whole reason he wants to blow do an expose on her is so that he can go back to sleeping around.
Yeah.
And I guess you could say that he falls in love with her, but again, it's just kind of like,
well,
he doesn't though. He just is like, he considers her kind of like, I guess you could say he considers her his equal. But again, it's like, what is his definition of love? And it happens very quickly. He doesn't really demonstrate that he has changed at all.
What about when he throws out his black book?
I guess so.
I mean, don't know. For a character whose entire personality is sleeping around, that's a big deal to just throw out your black book.
I guess that's true. Does he though?
Yeah, he even says that because remember, he's in his depressive state, and Peter comes over and he's like, "We need to get you out and circulating again. Where's your black book?" He's like, "I threw it out. I don't want to sleep with it. I don't want to have sex more. I just want to be married." So
that is true.
So I do feel like it's not like a huge arc like what we'd see, but for the character at the time period that it's supposed to be, it's a much bigger arc than we realize.
That's fair. But yeah, so that's like my thing with the movie. It's it was pretty great up until the ending. I do think you make some excellent points, but it still kind of sours me a little bit. It just feels almost like a cop-out. But does not ruin the movie. It just prevents it from being perfect. So and I do like the supporting cast. I liked the whole his like best friend who's trying to get with like her agent. Yeah, I guess is what. Yeah,
Peter and Vicky.
I like that.
Peter and Vicky are great.
Yes.
Well,
and
you know what's funny about that is they have that whole scene where she's like, "So you're a homosexual in love with Catcher Block? So what?" You know what's so funny about that scene is, and she's like, "I'm still gonna marry you anyway," which was a common thing back then. Is people who had trouble finding, they'd be like, "So I'll just marry you," and then that was common. So I love kind of that nod to LGBTQ history. But what's also hilarious is both those actors are gay.
Wait, she is and he is?
Yeah, she is and he is. She might be bisexual. I'm not sure, but yeah.
Yeah, he I did not know, but I'm not surprised. I had, he's one of those where I wasn't sure, but that is news to me. But yeah, I honestly I'm kind of going off of just memory, but there was quite a lot of like very well written sort of like period jokes about this time. To the point where I wish I had made notes because it was pretty lightning fast.
So this movie was there were several kind of sex comedies that it was kind of satirizing, but the main one that everybody has drawn for inspiration on is the movie Pillow Talk with Rock Hudson and Doris Day. Nice. And what's funny about that is Theodore Banner, the guy who owns the publishing company, he's played by Tony Randall, and Tony Randall was in Pillow Talk playing essentially the Peter character in that movie.
Is Pillow Talk basically this movie? Like, what's Pillow Talk about?
So I have never seen Pillow Talk. I know I'm an embarrassment to this whole thing. Pillow Talk, it's a 1959 movie, but it's a man and woman carry their feud over the telephone line they share into their real lives. So it's basically, it's kind of like they hate. It sounds like if they hate each other, but they kind of fall for each other sort of thing. It's not basically this movie, but that was the main inspiration. There were several that they drew from, but that's the one that comes up. And I was reading interviews with like the set decorators and everything. They kept referring back to this movie. But I thought that was kind of cool that he was in that movie and now he's in this movie. This movie has so many, like, I just feel that it has just so many just great scenes that you could just kind of take the scene out and just play it like as if a TikTok or something, and I just think they're just great. Were there any scenes in particular that stood out really to you?
So I've already mentioned the phone sex one.
Yes.
There is. I did like the. I'd almost call it more of a montage where she's just trying to meet with Catcher about her book, and he assumes that she's like a spinster. And it's just, he shows up late and it's like, "Oh, I'm sorry. Can we do lunch? Oh, I'm sorry. Can we do, and he's doing the whole thing like with different flight attendants and all this sort of, so I like that little bit. Actually, the opening is really good. I like the opening titles. It kind of reminds me of like a Saul Bass title sequence.
Yes,
from like the 60s.
Very much so, yeah.
So that was really cool. And I am trying to think, because I know there's more. There's the bit where they switch apartments, and I thought it was pretty funny when his friend is like unable to like do all the switches in the apartment.
I don't understand, Peter. How does a person lose their built-in bar?
So that was really good. Honestly, like my favorite thing was actually the dialogue. There was a lot of witty lines, like "blink and you miss it," like jokes and things like that, and that was probably the highlight to me. The cinematography is great because it reminds me of the time period and everything, but it's not super flashy.
Yeah, but it's very saturated.
It's also one of those movies where it's like it's very short. Like I feel like we've already talked quite a bit about most of like the most memorable parts of the movie. So I'm just like thinking, and it's I think like I mentioned it at the beginning, but the thing that's really kind of amazing is that it feels like it could have been made in that time period. And I mean, do you know, like, was the movie written at this time? Like, do you know anything about like what the screenwriters like thought, like why did they want to do a sex comedy? Why, you know, why set it in the 60s? Did they have that in mind to emulate the style? Like, I'm just kind of curious where this idea came from, because it's a very specific thing to want to do in 2003, and especially kind of gutsy, you know, considering, you know, I'm honestly surprised that they kind of expected it to do so well when they marketed it so strangely.
Yeah.
Well, so I'm curious if you know anything about like the screenwriting and any of that.
So unfortunately, because this film didn't do well, there's not a lot written about it that isn't essentially opinion pieces like what we're doing. You know, it's interesting. I did look at the Wikipedia page earlier. And what's funny is how you talk about the conclusion let you down, and online it actually says that the conclusion, like essentially the movie is the plot reflects the attitudes and behavior of the early pre-sexual revolution 1960s, but has an anachronistic conclusion driven by more modern post-feminist ideas and attitudes, which is funny because you thought that wasn't the case.
Well, again, it's to me, the reason it came off the opposite way is because it is sort of a sexist idea, at least to me, to assume that women are governed by their emotions. That's something you hear a lot, like with kind of people who belittle women. It's like, oh, you're being emotional, calm down, you're being hysterical. You know, like this idea that like because all women can't think with their brain and they just think with their feelings, that they can't be trusted in a position of, you know, power or authority. And the reason I already mentioned, but like it kind of, the movie comes off that she is that kind of way as a character. Especially when it keeps undercutting whenever she does something legitimately you know, powerful, where it's like, oh, that was just part of my secret plan to make you fall in love with me. It's like something, and again, like the whole feminism as a concept is so broad, like everyone's definition of it is going to be different. But I know that there is like kind of a school of thought out there where it's like, you know, women don't need to like feel like they need a man in their life. And if you think that all women like need to have like their soulmate for them to be whole, that is inherently like a sexist idea. And so again, like I don't think this movie is exactly like sexist or something. I'm not trying to be movie police, but I feel like
there was more
like
that could have been done.
Early on, I said that this movie would do better if it were released today.
Right.
I still think that, but I think that this movie would have a bunch of people also trying to cancel it at the same time. Like, I feel like there would be some people who are just like, this is an offensive portrayal of women. Everyone's giving up on this book. Everyone wants to get married. She keeps undercutting her business by trying to get with this guy. And that's kind of where, again, you're not going to get the same opinion from everyone. And, you know, I don't think it's necessarily wrong for someone to feel like they want their soulmate in their life or something like that. It's just to kind of like dumb down like women to this level of like all they care about is like love and romance, and all of their life and life decisions revolve around it. Even if they become CEO, it's just to impress a man.
Yeah.
That's where I think it could get kind of offensive to
people,
depending on who you talk to.
Yeah, and I can see that point. I can see that point as well. I did a little bit.
Well, and for 2003, it is definitely, like I talked about kind of the ecosystem of the time.
Yeah.
Nowadays, you constantly on YouTube and TikTok and stuff, people are taking clips from like dating shows and stuff from the 2000s, or like fashion from the 2000s, or music from the 2000s, and just kind of being shocked at sort of the pop culture mentality of a lot of things at the time. Mm-hmm. So definitely for 2003, I don't think it would be looked at that way. I do think it, and again, like I think that its intent was to be forward thinking and progressive.
Right.
But again, like moods are constantly changing, and the definition of feminism changes depending on who you're talking to and stuff. So that's kind of where, and for me personally, I think the part of the reason it rubs me the wrong way is I do not like women in as a character that obsess over, like, my favorite like women in film, like they've got their own shit going on. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if they have a romantic interest, it's kind of the same way as men having a romantic interest. You know, like Indiana Jones is not finding the Ark of the Covenant to impress the girl he's with.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he's doing it to get it away from the Nazis. The same way, like, Sarah Connor is not, you know, she wants to save humanity. She's not doing it so that some hunky dude will, like, fall in love with her.
Right.
And so, like, I think that's part of the reason it kind of rubs me the wrong way is, like, when it's like, oh, I'm going to start my own magazine to rival this one. But it's because the head writer at this other magazine, I have a thing for him. That, to me, just kind of makes it seem like she's very one-dimensional.
And I can see that. I do think that my personal opinion is that there's more depth to her than that. And I feel like the way that I view it just differs from the way you view it.
For sure. And that's why, like I said, this movie, I guess it's kind of like my wine and Coke mixture. It doesn't suck. I don't think it's going to be for everybody. I think if you are a person who's really into like very distinctive styles in movies, this will go a lot longer for you than, you know, just a straight up rom-com. And it's definitely way more creative than anything that came out in 2003.
Right.
So in that sense, I'm very sad it didn't do better, because I think this was probably one of the better like rom-coms to come out of that era.
And on that note, I know this won't score you any points, but actually Roger Ebert liked it. He gave it 2 thumbs up.
He likes everything but horror movies. and what's his face? The guy who did Godzilla and his new movie Moonfall's coming out.
But everyone said that Moonfall's not good, and he complains about it.
Well, no, I mean, why am I blanking? You can tell it's the beginning of the year. I'm forgetting everything. He did 2012. He's like a big disaster movie director, but he always got terrible reviews from Roger Ebert. And so in his 2000 or 1999 Godzilla movie, he actually made a character that was supposed to be Roger Ebert, and he was like the mayor of New York, and he was like evil and corrupt and kind of literally, like, I think his name was Roger, and he looked like Roger Ebert and stuff.
No hidden hostility there.
I mean, Ebert liked pretty much anything unless it was like super violent or super stupid.
Yeah.
Of all accounts, he was not a bad movie critic. I'm not a fan of him doxing actresses. He's mad at. That's definitely
so. According to Rotten Tomatoes, the consensus is, and I don't agree with this. It says Zellweger and McGregor have no chemistry together.
I completely disagree.
Yeah, I agree with that. I disagree with that too. I don't know why they said that, but
even with my mixed feelings on the movie, I think that they should be like its co-stars in more movies. I thought they were really good together. Here's a hot take. Let's get our audience mad, T. Okay. I think they had more chemistry than he did with his co-star in Moulin Rouge.
Oh my God. You just started a war.
People are going to be so mad. They had chemistry as well. Yeah. I just think that I'd like to see these two in more stuff together. I thought they worked really well. I think part of it is because they're both really good actors. I think Renee Zellweger could force chemistry between a co-star even if there was any.
Yeah.
Because she's such a good actress.
In 2018, Vanity Fair listed Down with Love as number 13 on their list of the 25 best romantic comedies of all time. I know it's definitely
That's not bad.
I know it's definitely on my list of favorite romantic comedies. And Chicago critic Jonathan Rosenbaum, I guess he's somebody important, named Down with Love one of his 25 favorite films of the 21st century so far. And that's pretty good. And it says in the years after its release, I guess two critics have retracted their previous statements on it and have praised it now, which I love when that happens.
Well, that's pretty great. So at least at least got some critical acclaim. What's its excuse me. What's its rating on Rotten Tomatoes?
It's at 60%.
Eh.
Oh, I remember when I was in college, I loved this movie. It's one of the ones I brought with me to school, and I tried to get people to watch with me. And because we were at a film school, nobody would watch it with me because it had less than, I think, like an 80 or something on Rotten Tomatoes. I'm like, seriously? Seriously?
See, this is why I'm happy we've got our own little review show here, because I that's something I'm not a fan of either. Is like when people won't give something a chance. I can see why someone might be hesitant to watch, especially if they like look up the trailer like I did before watching, because it doesn't do it justice. Because again, I think there's a lot to like, even if this isn't your genre or something. Like, it really is cool when perfect example, best picture of, I think, 2011, The Artist. It's a silent movie made in 2011 that takes place in the 30s, and it's in black and white, and it's silent. Everyone loved that movie.
Exactly.
You know, and it's a good movie, but it's exactly the same kind of thing as this, where it is, you know, capitalizing on the period it takes place in and emulating the style of it. So as a film person, like, even if it's not your thing, you know, you're supposed to look at films critically, right? You're not just supposed to blindly. It's the same reason I do, you know, I like Marvel movies, but a lot of people, myself included, find it kind of frustrating when that's all anyone wants to watch at the cinema. And it's kind of the same thing when you just follow reviews, you know?
Right.
It's the same sort of low brain energy that you get from like people who just consume, you know, Disney movies without thinking about it, right? It's like, oh, well, what's the Rotten Tomatoes score? Oh, I'm sorry, I don't watch things that aren't 80% or higher.
Right.
It's I don't watch DC movies. I only watch Marvel. Well, like, it's the same energy.
Back then, I was like just frustrated. I'm like, seriously, this is good. I like this. And then now I'm just like, what a sad life you must lead if you only watch that 20%. But so this movie has lots of calls to events of the time period. Like they talk about the mentioning of the pill. I love that scene when they're in the boardroom and she's trying to present the book to the board of directors, and they're making her make coffee. Just about the attitudes of that time period. There's that scene where there's protesters in front of the UN protesting the bomb.
I just remembered that there was also one where it's like, this book is horrible. Like, Jennifer won't sleep with me.
Oh, yeah, that guy.
No, my mistress.
Yeah, all our wives are giving us trouble. She's not my wife. She's my mistress. And we're just like, well, then you're just gross. But I think one of the best sequences in that movie is when the book is taking off. And we're seeing kind of this switch of male and female roles occurring. And so it starts off with that happening, and like, for example, one of the ones I always remember is that mother who's serving her kids food, and then we cut back to them later, and it's the husband trying to keep the table calm and feed people while she's out reading her book. That's great, and I love how they show the book going international.
Yeah, I think my favorite was it's, you know, communist China, and there's the girls, like...
Oh, they're slipping it under their hats?
Something that might be called out as being a little bit racially insensitive these days, but they're, like, hiding their books under their hats. I love passing them to each other.
I love that it's in Russia, and they don't even have a bookstore. They have a supply store. And... they have to have the books shipped in loaves of bread. I love that. That was great. But I think is one of my favorite sequences in that film. I think that was just one. It shows the world as it was. It not only it shows the book rising, but it shows the world as it was then. The world that she, at least the character she's portraying, is pushing against, and how in change being affected. And if you look at when she finally gets the #1 bestseller, the book that she knocked down to #2 is Profiles in Courage by JFK, which is like a bestseller for like ever in the 60s. I thought that was great.
Well, it's a mixed bag for sure. It's definitely a movie.
Oh my god.
It's not a bad movie though. I don't want to give off the wrong impression. It's, again, the ending to me loses a little bit of its steam, but it's not bad. And like, I guess are we into the final thoughts of this yet?
Well, I was gonna say one more thing, but it's kind of more just insight into the life of Sweet Tea. I mean, I personally listen to the female "Fly Me to the Moon" version that plays in the movie when I get ready for a date. I mean, just saying.
You must listen to it a lot since you got 20 boyfriends.
Oh my god. Okay. But hey, that was another great sequence too. I love the two of them getting ready at the same time, and I loved how it was the same song but different singers. I don't know, something about that I thought was kind of cool.
No, like, from a filmmaking perspective, this is perfectly well executed.
Right.
And if that's all, like, if we're into our final thoughts,
yeah.
I'm going to say, I was going to give this, like, first off, like, as a new season, I guess we should come up with like a rating system, right? Besides recommend or not recommend.
Uh-huh.
And Roger, Ebert, Siskel and Ebert famously had their 4 stars, right?
Mm-hmm.
1 to 4 stars. So I'm going to give this one. I would have probably given it 2.5 cocktails, but I think I'm going to give it 3 cocktails out of 4. Three wine and cokes out of 4. Mostly just because of what you said about people not wanting to watch it because of the Rotten Tomatoes score.
Yeah.
If there's anything that this podcast stands for, it's for having your own opinion and watching something and coming up with something out of your own head and not just parroting things people say on a freaking critic aggregate site,
right?
Letterboxd or whatever. Like, see the movie and then come up with your own opinion. I don't watch it because I understand, like, time is precious. Maybe it's not your thing, but it's pretty pathetic that it's like if you had friends in college and the only reason that they didn't want to watch it was because of the Rotten Tomatoes score. Shut up. There's plenty of horror movies I like that are not particularly well reviewed, but
right.
I think are, good. So I'm going to give this 3 out of 4.
Well, I'm actually very flattered by that, even though I didn't make this movie. I'm very happy with that score. I, of course, am going to give it 4 glasses of sweet tea out of 4. One of the main reasons why, not just because I love it, because as you said earlier, this was just I think it was just such a daring film to even make in the early 2000s, and to have it helmed by a major studio, 20th Century Fox, put effort. So they believed in it enough to launch a clothing line, for God's sake.
Technically, wouldn't this movie go under the Disney umbrella at this point? Because
yes.
I know a lot of the movies are owned by Disney. So why isn't this on Disney Plus, T?
Well, because it's right now licensed out to Warner Media. It's on HBO Max right now.
Do you think it will be on Disney Plus once the license runs out?
I don't think so. I think they'll relegate it to Hulu because
I was going to say
Disney Plus. The way it runs in the US... It's
much more for Disney movie. Like, well, I've noticed that too. A lot of my favorite like FX shows and stuff are on Hulu. So
it's basically
anything that's not exactly family friendly, they'll put on Hulu. Well, is like, yes, we own it, but it's over here now.
Well, what's interesting is overseas, Disney has another platform. They have Disney Plus, and they have something called Starz. And Starz is essentially where they put everything else that's not necessarily family friendly. So
it's actually kind of sad that it's funny because over here we have Starz, but it's like, it's almost like its own HBO type thing.
Yeah, it's not the same Starz as it's not the same Starz.
It's not the same Starz.
Yeah.
I just think that's funny because it's a good name for a streaming service, but you can't do that over here because it exists already.
So I think so. Well, and basically back to what I was saying, my 4 glasses of sweet tea is essentially, like I said, it's a very daring movie, but it's a movie that I think it doesn't try to be anything. It's not, I'm not like feeling like I'm being talked at or talked down to with it. It's a movie that exists for, you to have a good time at the movies. And it has a message. It has, relevant political commentary, that sort of stuff, but it doesn't patronize you, is what I'm trying to say. It was a movie that was taken seriously, and a lot of care was put into, even though it wasn't trying to be, Oscar gold. And I feel like that's something that I don't see a lot anymore. Like, unless a movie is Oscar gold, no one really gives it the time of day as far as making it. So that's kind of how I feel about this movie. And I do think it's a movie that more people should watch. I do recommend it to everybody, as long as I do an asterisk and say it is supposed to be, kind of a parody of these type of movies, or kind of a takeoff of it, so people don't walk into it thinking, it's going to be like Bridget Jones's Diary or something. But that's my take on it. I think the sets are absolutely gorgeous. I think the thought and care that's put into the production design was amazing. I love the score. I've had the score on back when I still had an iPod, I've had the score that long. I've always loved the score for this movie, and I just think it's a great time.
Heck yeah. So I've got an idea.
Okay.
So we're looking for a new thing to sign off, right? A new little catchphrase to end our episodes. So I figure I'll say one and you come up with one. And maybe we should even put this as a poll on Twitter, which one people like better. And then we'll just keep this going for the rest of the year and see which one people like the best.
Okay, wait. But who's going to say the end catchphrase, you or me?
Both of us. We're going to come up with one right now.
Okay. Oh God. Okay.
And then next episode we'll come up with other ones.
Okay.
I just had this idea now, so So I'll say mine. Again, this might be too much infringement on something, but here's looking at you, kids.
And mine is "Help me, whiskey's drunk." You gave me no time to think about it. Sorry.
It's okay. It's the first episode. We got a whole month. To think of some other ones, or, until the next time. But for anyone listening, next month is going to be Farrelly Brothers month. We've got a couple of comedies we're going to look at. Mm-hmm. I'm super stoked. And yeah, feel free to like and subscribe if you're watching this on YouTube. If you're listening to Spotify, we've got a buttload of other episodes backlogged that you guys can check out if you want to hear our sultry voices any longer. But yeah, welcome back, guys.
And thanks for joining us for our first annual Lonely Hearts Club. More to come.
Heck yeah. All right. See you later, guys.
Reels on the Rocks is a production of La Prince Laboratories. It is edited and produced by Alejandro Castillo and features original artwork by Asa Esparza and original music by Pat Mars. Follow us on Twitter at Reels on the Rocks and tweet at us with any movies or topics you'd like us to discuss in the future.